on-premise installation video. In this video, we will deploy the Uila solution inside of our data center. First things first, however, let's look at the various components that make up the Uila solution. First thing I want you to notice is what we call the Virtual Information Controller, or VIC. The VIC is used to communicate with vCenter via APIs to gather data regarding your virtual infrastructure and virtual machines. This will provide us with statistics for CPU, memory, and storage, along with topology of your infrastructure. To the left of that, we have our Virtual Smart Taps, or VSTs. A VST is a small VM that resides within the infrastructure and sits on a specific vSwitch where your VMs live. This smart tap will be used to gather metadata about network and application performance. These smart taps will provide the data to the VIC to be combined with vCenter data and sent to the Uila Management and Analytics Server, or UMAS. The UMAS in this case is a virtual machine within your infrastructure and contains a Hadoop database to hold all of your metadata data points, as well as the analytic engine, and provides a web interface to your dashboard and monitors. Now that we know the various components, let's begin the process of deploying the UMAS first, followed by the VIC, and finally the smart taps. Most likely you are familiar with the process of deploying OVA or OVF files, so the first part will move fairly quickly. We are simply selecting the OVA to deploy, choosing the cluster, host, and data store to deploy into, and selecting thin provisioning unless you have a policy to thick provision new VMs. The important page is the Properties page, where you will need to select a username and password to access our web UI, as well as provide networking information for the VM created within vCenter. Please note that we will need to use static IP addresses for both the UMAS and VIC VMs. Once we fill in all of the important information, we can review the settings and deploy the VM and have it powered on once completed. Once that's complete, we can go through the same process again to deploy the VIC. You will see one extra page that explains the various configurations we have available. Please note that the amount of resource assigned to the VIC is dependent on the number of VMs within the infrastructure. Lastly, you will see we need to point the VIC to the UMAS. So we will enter the IP address of the UMAS here as opposed to portal.uila.com, which is set by default to send data to our cloud. You will then enter the IP address and administrative credentials for vCenter and network settings for this VM, again using a static IP. Please note administrative credentials are required due to the fact that later we will be utilizing our auto deployment feature to set up our VSTs. Once that's complete, we're ready to open a web browser, preferably Firefox, Chrome, or Safari, and point it to the IP address of your management server. Once there, you'll use the credentials you chose during the setup process. And once you're in the interface, you should click on the real-time switch at the top. You should see that there are a few notes in the system log. The important ones we're looking for are that the vim, the old name for the VIC, has started, and it shows the name of your data center, the logical data center under vCenter. Now within a few minutes you should start seeing some colors appear on the screen. When you do, you can go to the Settings tab on the left toolbar and we can deploy our VSTs. Expand the host that you'd like to deploy a Smart Tap on, click on the vSwitch checkbox, and click Configure button. Here you can choose your data store, network that has access to the VIC, and choose either DHCP or static IP for this VM. Lastly, you will click on the Please Select drop-down and choose Install. Once it begins, I like to go to vCenter, and we can see a new port group get created for ourselves. And if we go to our networking tab for that host, you can see a new port group within that vSwitch, as well as the new VM being created. Going back to our web UI, you will see the VM will show as active, and a few minutes later you will begin to see colors appear for both network and application performance. For more information on how to use the solution, check out our How to Use Uila video. A link is below in the notes. Thanks for watching.